Hello, I'm Brett Knowles from PM Squared Consulting. This video is a recording of the session I gave in Manchester last week, which talks about how we can simplify our employees' performance management systems and engage employees at the same time. This session was sponsored by There Be Giants, and as a reminder, There Be Giants is a Manchester-based consulting firm that specializes in helping organizations simplify their performance management employee systems through various employee engagement schemes. So here's what we know. We know that money is not a strong motivator to employees. Certainly money is important, and a lot of research indicates that once you have met people's major monetary needs, the incremental value of each next pound they earn is less than the previous one. And in fact, if we survey employees, and there have been many surveys out there, we discover that pay is not the first thing that employees are motivated by. The first thing is praise and commendation from the manager. Pay is not the second thing. The second thing is attention from company leadership. Pay is not even the third thing. The third thing is the opportunity to take on bigger challenges and lead bigger projects. It is the fourth thing, performance-based rewards and bonus, and the fourth is about increase in pay. So it's important to note that the public sector that doesn't have the opportunity of paying more for performance, in fact, has been forced to learn how to actually use what really motivates employees, which is about employee engagement and challenges. A lot has been written about this, and my favorite book on the topic is Daniel Pink's book called Drive. Half this book is spent reviewing the various research that substantiates the need for intrinsic motivators, and the second half talks about how we use them. And it's the second half I'm going to focus on during the rest of this presentation. Daniel Pink talks about the need for intrinsic versus extrinsic motivators. Intrinsic are activities that are rewarding in and of itself. Think of playing a sport, playing a musical instrument, playing a game. Those provide you with intrinsic rewards. You're not ever paid for them. You do them because they're fun. Extrinsic are things where there's some external force that's causing the action. And obviously that's often the incentive of pay. But a lot of research substantiates that unless you're doing a boring, repetitive assembly type job, extrinsic motivators don't encourage employees to challenge themselves and do a better job. Anytime there's any element of cognitive skill set required in the job function, we're way better off intensifying the intrinsic rewards. There are 5 basic intrinsic rewards that are applicable to the business world. First is purpose. People need to understand that they make a difference to society, and that's why we join public sector organizations. Mastery. I need the training to learn how to do that job and the opportunity to practice and get better. Progress. I need to see that I am achieving those goals and making progress. Fourth, autonomy. Given I understand my purpose, I have the skills through mastery, and I can see the progress, then I'd like the autonomy to get the job done as I think best. Let me choose how to achieve those goals. And then finally, social interaction. We need the opportunity of talking with our coworkers about what we're doing, the performance, success, lessons learned, etc. So let's begin applying that to how we use those intrinsic rewards to help employees perform better. And we've come up with the 5 P's to do this. To set up a performance management system for your employees, you need to do 5 things. 1, define their purpose for them. So almost think of that as column 1 on your performance management sheet. 2, tell them the priority of that activity. And again, think of that as the second column. Position. What is your role? What are you doing to make that activity occur so that you understand your responsibility in maintaining the process or doing the activity? The next column is going to be about performance, so I can record how I'm performing, and then finally progress. How have I been performing over time? So let's take a look at what that seems to be inside the employee framework. Purpose, helping the employee understand that they make a difference. And here's the thing. We work in the public sector because we've got a passion for the cause. And so everyone needs to understand, what is that cause? What is their connection to that cause and the bigger purpose? How can they individually make a difference, and what they need to do to make that difference? So inside your performance management solution, all you need to do is make sure that you're clearly communicating the cause and what their objective is, how they contribute to it, and perhaps even the key result that we're looking for. Purpose. Second, priority. People need to understand how important that activity is this quarter, and things change priority over time. So we tend to use a 5-point scale. A process or a project for this period is either critical, essential, necessary, a stretch target, or unplanned. And we'll come back to these in a second. Position. Position's all about understanding what is your role in that process. And from there, we typically use a framework like RACI. Who's responsible for doing the job, who's accountable for how the process works, who needs to be consulted if it is to be changed, and who needs to be informed of the change once it's made. So I need to know for any process what is my role so I understand how to perform. Progress. We need to give people a way to see that we're making progress towards our goals. And the easiest way to show progress isn't dollars, but think of it, like an online game. You earn points for the work you do, and the extrapolation of that would be you earn more points for better performance on a more important objective. So what if we whip together a points table, and across the top we're talking about the different types of progress. So, red is I need help, yellow I'm behind target but I can get there with a bit of focus, and green, I'm on target. And those priorities down the left. Now what we should be able to do is literally assign how many points I earn for the progress with that priority against that objective. So let's say I had a critical objective and I achieve the full on-target performance, I should earn 125 points. So if I were to say have an essential project and I only got to partial success, I'd get 75 points. So I can clearly understand the reward I get for working on each thing, and I can now prioritize what thing I'm going to work on. Now, this table doesn't come up through hard mathematics, it comes up through hard knocks. We've been using this for about 8 years and have gradually discovered what the point spread is to help motivate employees. The one I always point out is this bottom one. When the boss dumps on you an unplanned project, you're not going to spend any time on it until the boss tells you what priority that project is. And we think it's a fair deal to only have a limited number of projects at each priority level. So our rule of thumb is you can only have 20% of your projects and processes being critical. So if that new unplanned activity is critical, you might need guidance from your boss to find out which critical activity bumps down to essential. And that might maximize your quota of essentials, and one has to get demoted down to expected. So that reprioritization of activities, be it a process or a project, is what leadership is about. And it's a fair game that we ask them to prioritize these projects, or we don't need to feel obligated to spend time on them. So that's the concept. Let me show you what this looks like in a performance management solution. So overall, we need a dashboard that tells us how we're performing. And I'll come back to this in a second. But I wanted to focus on how we get there. This is kind of the engine behind it, where we identify what are the strategic goals. Within that, what are the objectives we're looking for? Within that, what are the key results to achieve this objective, to work towards this goal? And we capture the actual and forecast performance, priorities, and roles. Now let's step through that. Remember I said to build an effective solution, we need the 5 Ps. So purpose shows up here by what's the key result. Now we clearly understand the purpose of this activity. Performance. Now we can just add on how we're performing. And we track two things: how we're actually performing and how far we forecast we're going to go. Because often during the course of the month, things happen and we don't make the progress that we're expecting. So I need a way to see that progress over time. In this case, I can see the forecast degrades as we have quality problems, customer problems, supplier problems, and I see the progress I make towards that. So that allows us to see how we're progressing against those objectives. Priority. Now we'll identify how important each of these activities are, key results, so that I can make decisions moment to moment on which one I'm going to work on that's consistent with the organization's strategy. And then finally, the socialization. How can we know what to talk about in our performance meetings? As a job performer or owner, I should be able to put a flag up to say I've got a concern that we should talk during our meeting. And then it becomes part of that monthly or weekly performance meeting. And my boss might do the same thing. Or my boss might see this and take it off because he or she might recognize this needs to be a one-on-one conversation between us and doesn't involve the team. So overall, we've been able to achieve purpose, priority, position, performance, and progress through this framework. And so what this allows us to do is add in things like that role clarity model so we know what I'm accountable for at each time. Now, this is a fairly detailed dashboard. We've discovered that sometimes it's easier if we have a simplified version of it. So again, as you earn points based on the work you've done, I should be able to see how many points I've earned, what my forecast is, how many of my objectives are red, amber, and green, how I'm performing against other team members or departments, my progress, and so forth. In fact, we use this to produce an individual's scorecard. So now we've gotten away from the annual performance review. On an ongoing basis, I can see how I'm performing, and I can have a conversation with my boss at any time about how I'm performing, what training I might need, and so forth. In fact, we've added the capability within this so that I can add in individual tasks, more detailed status notes, ongoing performance reviews, and so forth. So this becomes a system that enables the 5 Ps that we talked about before. The benefits that we see? Well, in the private sector, we see that engagement goes up by about 45%. We see that employee turnover goes down by about 65%. We see that employee absenteeism decreases by 95%. And we see productivity goes up by 27%. And these are impressive results in the public sector, and again, based on driving people's intrinsic motivators. So I hope this has been useful to you. As I mentioned at the beginning, Therapy Giants is in Manchester and specializes in helping organizations implement these systems. So please call Therapy Giants, or feel free to call me or email me at any point in time if you have questions about the concepts we've talked about or would like to know more about enabling them. I hope this has been useful to you.